Da-da-da-da-da. Welcome to another exciting edition of Loco Literature Unwound. I'm your host for the evening, Jody Peterson, along with Miss Thull.
Hi, everybody.
Hello!
So I'm here live in room 277.
And today we will be talking about the elements of a story.
Holy buckets. All right, let's talk about subject versus theme next. This can be really confusing for students, I think, sometimes, because occasionally you think that a subject might be a theme, but they're not the same thing. So subjects are typically one word. So hope, love, friendship, Christmas, these are all subjects.
So like the movie Happy Gilmore is about golf. The subject of Happy Gilmore is golf.
Why didn't you just go home? That's your home! Are you too good for your home? Answer me!
Whatever the message is about those subjects in a story is a theme. So if the message about friendship is that people need others in their lives to support them, to make their lives rich and better, then that's a theme. So when you think of subjects, think of one word. When you think of theme, think of a sentence to explain what the message is about a subject.
Theme is the life lesson. What is the story trying to teach the reader? And in Happy Gilmore, maybe one of the possible themes would be that you do for family.
Look, I'm telling you, I am gonna get that 270 grand and we're gonna get your house back. That is a promise.
Sure.
In the meantime, just stay here and have some fun.
Imagery. So imagery relates to the five senses, right? It's how poets and authors create worlds for us that help us visualize in our mind what we're reading. So how do they do that? Through sight, smell, taste, touch, and hearing. So anything that relates to the five senses is imagery.
So if I ask you to describe your room and you say it's big and nice, I don't know what that means. If you tell me that it is 200 square feet with a king-size bed that has a really nice mattress pad on it, and that it's all decorated in a crimson red satin fabric and smells like roses, that's a much better image.
Symbolism. So a symbol is something that stands for or represents something else.
Symbolism is when you have a name, a color, an object that represents a concept. So a color, for example, green could symbolize fertility, growth, newness, pregnancy, envy or jealousy, greed or money. And you really have to take in context what's going on in the rest of the story that green would be in there. Is it symbolizing something? Doesn't have to be a color, could be a name like grace or faith. If you have an object, like
A lot of people might say that, an eagle is symbolic of freedom, or some of American values. A heart can be symbolic of love and affection. So symbolism, something that stands for or represents something else. Meep, meep.
just in town for supplies, partner.
There's 3 kinds of irony, people.
Irony is basically the opposite of what you expect. The 3 types of irony, I like to remember them as Dave's irony, DVS, Dave's. And the D stands for dramatic irony. Dramatic irony is when the audience or the reader knows more than the character in the story or the movie. For example, in Titanic, if you've ever seen that movie, all of the audience who's watching knows that the ship is going to go down. And this is dramatic irony because we're all like, oh my gosh, this is terrible. The two characters in that movie meet each other and they start to fall in love, and you're thinking, this is not going to end well. And it just, whew, it's very dramatic. Like in a scary movie, when you know that the bad guy is coming, but the poor girl who's sitting on the couch talking on the phone has no idea. And you're like, ah!
Verbal irony, also considered sarcasm at times. That's when somebody says something when they really mean the opposite.
I see your mom let you dress yourself ever since you were a young child because, boy, that outfit, knocking it out of the park. When in reality, you're thinking, dude, did you get dressed in the dark?
Situational irony.
That is when you would expect one thing to happen, but the opposite actually occurs. For you had an oncologist, which is a cancer doctor, and he smoked 2 packs of cigarettes a day. You would not expect that. You would expect him to be healthier.
We've got verbal, situational, and dramatic.
Foreshadowing.
That is when we get a clue about what's going to happen in a story. So the author gives us a little hint about what's coming later on.
It's like when you see a movie and then after you've seen it the first time, you watch it again and you're like, oh yeah, because this is going to happen. That's foreshadowing. Flashback. That is when we're in the present right now. The narrator is telling you the story right now, and then all of a sudden he jumps back into the past and tells you something that happened before, and then he comes back again to what's going on right now. That's called a flashback.
Typically, you see that in a story where the plot line is going along, and then all of a sudden a character will think about something that happened in the past. They will flash back to a previous experience. And those flashbacks are usually really important because they give us information that help us as readers understand something about the character or something that's happening in the plot line.
In Finding Nemo, when Dory flashes back, like all of these memories that led up to her retrieving the address on Wallaby Way so that Marlin could find Nemo.
Get me out of here!
Point of view. So there's 3 kinds of point of view. We've got first, third limited, and third omniscient. That's a fun word.
In first person point of view, the narrator says, I, me, my. I am telling my story. If it's in first person, notice first with a 1, I. They look very similar. First person is telling my story. All right? In third person limited, the narrator is telling someone else's story, and their perspective is limited to that one character.
You still have a narrator that's not a character in the story at all. Someone is telling us the story, but that narrator can see and understand what's going on inside one character's mind. So we just get that one character's perspective, but you wouldn't see first person pronouns like I or me. You would still see he, she.
So if I was going to tell you a story about Mr. Burling, for example, I'm going to tell you what I know because Mr. Burling told me the story, and now I'm telling you. I'm limited to what Mr. Burling knew and to what Mr. Burling thought because he told me. I'm limited to one character. Third person omniscient is the last point of view.
All knowing. When you have a narrator that's not a character in the story at all, just this sort of omnipresent narrator that can understand and anticipate what's going on in all of your characters' minds, that can tell us how everybody in the story is feeling, That's definitely a third person omniscient point of view.
Omniscient means all knowing. So the character knows everything. So let's say that the setting of the story is Burlington High School. And let's say that a fire broke out in the English office. So an omniscient narrator would know what was going on in the English office, would know what was going on downstairs in the office, would know what was going on at a parent's house at the same time the fire broke out, would know what the characters were all thinking, because they're all knowing. They know all the thoughts and all the feelings and all the actions of everyone who's included in the story.
You're in my world now, Grandma.
I'm Mrs. Thal.
I'm Mrs. Peterson. Da-da-da-da. And that's a wrap for part 2 of Loco Literature Unwound.